The funnel that I built from scratch, it would actually go sign up the client. And most people, let's say, had lead generator funnels, but mine was a client generation funnel.
Right.
The law firm owner was very stressed. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like, yeah, we're struggling. Or like, we're not generating enough clients and things like that. I'm like, well, you know what? I could do this for you. It's pretty easy. I could do it. I know how to do it. And me evaluating what's being done for you is not right. Let me do it. And I took over. And within like a week or two, I noticed there was like 2 new staff members at the office. And I came back later. It was like, I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Financial institutions and all the controls and all the regulations and stuff versus Bitcoin, I would 100% go Bitcoin if it was just side by side.
Welcome to my legal academy, helping lawyers work smart, scale fast, and enjoy life.
All right, so today we're here on the beach. Hamid, I don't think it would be a better setting for today than this. We're in a new studio. We're gonna be kind of testing this out, see how it goes. If you guys like this kind of setting and if you like this, please let them know in the comment section below. Hamid, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Sam. This is the closest I ever get to the beach.
Hopefully, actually, we'll make some time. I've been trying to push you for us to be able to take a day off. Maybe next Thursday, instead of doing this, we'll do some brainstorming session. So great to be here. We have some very interesting topics for today. Let's start off with, I want this to be story based. You know, a lot of stories to be able to, for people to get to know us. And also you have an amazing, interesting, super background in Silicon Valley. You've met some amazing people like Jeff Bezos and Michael Saylor and these cool stories. So we'll get into those stories. But I want to share our story of how we were able to meet. And can you kind of start off with your story and then I'll come in and how I entered this picture.
Absolutely, Sam. Yeah, as far as going to the story is when you live 20 years within Silicon Valley, and especially the older days where internet got created and then .coms came about and the whole transitions, you get the opportunity to meet a lot of great people and a lot of people inspiring. I happened to meet Jeff Bezos at the event, Steve Jobs. I met Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, which I worked with for 8 years. So I definitely have stories for you.
And I feel like those people have rubbed off. I'm sure there's so many stories and lessons that you learned. Can you share something? You mentioned Eric Schmidt to me. Can you share what you learned from him?
In early 80s, when I joined Sun Macrosystem as being one of the technical engineering managers, and Eric Schmidt was vice president of the software group. And we worked together for about 8 years with Eric and had the pleasure of working with him, learning from him, great mentor in a way. And seeing him evolve to where he is right now is also very inspiring. He has a great followers. And one of the good stories about Eric Schmidt, when we were the hardware division, they were the software division. And we noticed there's a lot of traffic in the parking lot that there's no cars leaving at night, and then come in the morning, the same cars are parked in the same place. So the hardware group was inspired to look and see what's going on. Where is these people? Why are not going home? And believe it or not, that was the creation of Java. This was a group under Eric Schmidt who were sort of a spin-off from creating operating system like Unix and Linux and so forth to go create this thing called Java. And the reason they call it Java, the interesting story about that is they had to consume so much coffee to be able to stay up like 72 hours to do the work and coding. Then when they were coming up with the name of what do we call it, it says, well, look, everything around here is pretty much coffee. So we were just calling it a Java. And that's how the name Java came about from, experience working at Sun.
And you mentioned that he had some kind of like a halo effect to him. Over time, he kind of became like a father figure to people. Can you tell why that was, and like why was he so different from everyone else?
He was probably had the biggest follower in the tech industry, and it had to do with his personality, his skill set, and he was basically working with everybody as the equivalent team member and a mentor. I mean, he's Dr. Schmidt, by the way. He has his PhD in computer science. So, but he never let anybody call him Dr. Schmidt, but he was actually a PhD. And the way he interacted with everybody, it was almost like equals. And then he created this following where everything he said or everywhere he went, all the brain power went with him. So it was one of those guys that you could never afford to lose because the way he was.
Did he just think differently on a different level? Like, what was it?
He was always visionary. and he was never wanted to sort of copy, follow, whatever. He always wanted to create, and he inspired the team like you wouldn't believe. Like when if he was sitting in the meeting for 48 hours, everybody was sitting in that meeting 48 hours and not complaining because they were just, he created that environment.
Big visionary.
Big visionary. Yeah. It was Steve Jobs sort of had the same sort of a philosophy, but he was rougher, tougher kind of a guy. Eric was always the softer soul, not as drastic that Steve Jobs was.
And yet you had so many of these amazing stories from Silicon Valley, but let's fast forward to how you came to LA and how you fell into the legal world.
Yeah, 20 years of Silicon Valley. I got recruited by a public company, which was a European and Israel-based company, to move to LA and run their Northern America division. So I was the president of the company for a while. And that was the beginning of a .coms also. So we created a webradio.com, which was the equivalent of broadcast.com with Mark Cuban. So we're doing competition with that. It was a lot of creativity. The company was based from IDF, from Israel, Israel's Defense Forces. So very high-end technology. Did that for a few years. It was very exhausting, and then moved on to doing some of my own ventures, which a lot of them had to do with business development in high tech and so forth. And one day, I was kind of bored, and one of my friends said, look, can you come and take a look at my law practice? It looks like we are very much behind on things. So I said, sure. I went in there not knowing anything about the law, but I treated it like another high-tech startup, basically. So I went in there, looked at the staff, looked at the processes and so forth. And I said, oh my God, this thing is so outdated. It's like, that's why I came up with the analogy at the time where it says if you leave the attorneys alone, they'd be still wearing pagers, waiting on the fax machine to get the next fax. And that's how it was. So I started working with it, changed the processes, automated a lot of stuff, got rid of redundancies, got rid of them, structured it, reduced the expenses by like 35%, reduced that and increased the revenue on the fees by like 50%. And it was a lot of fun doing it. And sort of the word got around that this guy from Silicon Valley is coming and doing this stuff. So I started getting calls on doing it with the other firms. So I did that with a bunch of firms. And then the project became so big that I needed a team. So that's where the LegalSoft came from, by putting a team together that does what I sort of lay out, implements it, and expands on it. And now we're a company of almost 200 staff and about 1,000 agents. So that's where we are today.
And that's all in less than 3 years.
Yes, this all happened in the last 3 years.
And it's so cool to be able to see it from budding, from zero essentially to budding, and now be able to see it and now see the office grow. And now you guys have headquarters all over the world.
Yeah, we just opened up 7 offices, physical offices in 7 countries that are staffed with our recruiters, trainers, country managers, and it's gone global. It's been even amazing to me, but we come from a Silicon Valley training. You don't get as impressed as most people do because everything over there does this, but it's so isolated to that community that the whole world doesn't see it.
Right, and I feel like you guys have become the most robust company in the space. You guys have a lot of competitors that do this, but I feel like you guys actually have the systems to be able to actually serve the market. And I feel like people that become your clients, they start off with 1 or 2, but all of a sudden they're expanding to dozens,
Absolutely.
20, 30 VAs pretty quickly, and you guys be able to serve them. So the direct plug, we always talk about operations and virtual assistants, things like that. Definitely check out LegalSoft, Hamid's company, for that. I want to relay how I fell into this picture and how I was able to meet you. I basically had to figure out how to generate clients. Started reading a lot of books, and one of those things had to be strategic. I couldn't do it all. So I first learned about SEO, then websites. Then I read a book that basically said it was like an 80-20 of advertising. And it basically said, listen, there's like 20 different ways to do marketing, but what's working best right now is essentially Google Ads and essentially landing pages, funnels. And I go, okay, sounds cool. Let me set it up for myself. And I set it up right away, started getting clients. Well, what's cool about this particular funnel was that it would the funnel that I built from scratch, it would actually go sign up the client. And most people, let's say, had lead generator funnels, but mine was a client generation funnel.
Right.
So all of a sudden, like I was in Israel and I'm getting notifications of payments coming through automatically. And I'm like, this is so cool. So I'm like, okay, great. That wasn't that bad. I could set up these things. So I, at the same time, one of my friends basically is like, hey, you could come work in my office. At the time I was working from home. So I started working at his office, and the office we were at was a driving tickets and a DUI kind of criminal defense kind of firm. And they were doing their thing, but the law firm owner was very stressed. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I was struggling. Like, we're not generating enough clients and things like that. I'm like, well, you know what? I could do this for you. It's pretty easy. I could do it. I know how to do it. And me evaluating what's being done for you is not right. Let me do it. And I took over. And within like a week or two, I noticed there was like 2 new staff members at the office. And I came back later. It was like, I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? And I realized, wait a minute, they're growing, right? And I'm literally seeing it. They're blossoming. I'm like, this is working. The guy didn't even tell me. I'm like, this is working. So I'm like, this is working. This does work beyond what I thought was possible. So I made a hit list essentially of all the lawyers that I knew personally, and basically made a goal to get in contact with them. And I will always get the feedback, yeah, let's have a meeting, but I'm going to have my marketing person or my business person to come in on these meetings. And every time I would hear that, it was always like a much tougher meeting, because now this other person would come in. So now this time I hit up one of the personal injury lawyers that I knew. I'm like, hey, I could do this. Okay, sure, come on in.
Sorry, how long did that process took? From the minute that you started with the criminal defense and by the time you figured out that there's a problem and then you found a solution of generating the clients for them and for them expansion, to what time period did that happen?
This is all within days, because it's all within days. It's essentially, once you figure out the formula, then it's very repeatable. And there's a system to the system, basically. So within days, getting it up and running, and then what's cool about all this stuff, it's very trackable. So you know what's going on. You know how many leads are coming in. Now you're clear with the cost per lead and cost per client. And
I think that's a big element of the success of what you do. It is trackable. It's data. So you didn't do it sort of figuring out, okay, let's try this and see what happens, and sort of a gut feeling some clients showed up and then this and that, which most people get driven on. Versus you look at the data tells you everything you want to know.
Right, and that transitions perfectly to exactly how our meeting went. So I come to this meeting and I'm doing my presentation. I thought I knew it all. And then there's this guy who's sitting here asking me questions about what's my cost per lead, what's my conversion rate, what's my cost per acquisition. I'm like, who are you? So why are you questioning my stuff? And that guy was Hamid. And literally the terms you were bringing up, like landing page conversion rate. I'm like, how do you know? You're like this older gentleman. How do you know these things? And I was very curious. And I happened to by chance catch you in the hallway that day. I don't know if you remember.
Right.
And I'm like, who are you? What's your story? And you told me, like, you give me a glimpse. Oh yeah, I was in Silicon Valley, and now I was in high tech, and now I'm in here. Like, oh, interesting. And I started working with the law firm. And then we basically started working together. Essentially, we're the liaison for this law firm. And it was like boot camp.
Right.
So I would, do my thing, but you had high expectations. Like, tell me how many clients we signed up, how many leads we did, what's niche, let's try this niche. Went back and forth through emails.
It was as intriguing for me as it was for you, though, because I've talked to many other people before I met you about the same thing. Generating business, basically, generating leads, clients, cases, costs, and everything. And every time I ask them one of those questions I ask you, they were like, I can need to go figure that out. It was almost like they went into the places and they basically said, I can get you leads. And they all said, okay, great, that's great. And then this guy's went and created leads, and this guy paid for it, and sometimes worked out, a lot of times didn't work out. So when I asked you those questions and you actually were interested and had the answers, that was like, okay. So I found somebody who can actually talk data and not just pretend data. Actually talk about it.
All of our emails were essentially charts and numbers. It just like knew pretty much what it came down to. We distilled it down to just numbers essentially, and we talked in that language and went back and forth. But the big problem was the leads were being generated, but the leads were not being converted.
Yeah.
I went back and forth for months, and the eternal universal struggle of marketing is I'm generating the leads, but I'm not generating clients.
You pressed on a lot of people. I remember that. Everybody running around saying, Boy, Sam is not happy with me. Sam is not happy with me. All the intake people, all the intake management or whatever, it was all because you were pressing on them that I'm generating them, but you're not converting them.
And actually, I had the data to back it up because I could say, well, 18 calls came in, but 16 of them were less than 1 minute. What's going on? There was 16 missed calls.
That intrigued that essentially you found the flaws within the system that that the particular law practice and many others after that generating the leads doesn't mean necessarily that the firm gets cases. You still have to put a lot of effort and infrastructure to take advantage of the leads that you have created to convert it to actual cases. A lot of firms think that the leads should just automatically become a case. It's like magically just the lead comes in and the retainer signed tomorrow. It does not the case. But we understood it, but they didn't.
And the good part is, I think we mentioned this before, Intake AI, hopefully be able to be the first in the market to be able to release this. Tomorrow in our Mad Legal Academy, I'll be doing a demonstration of a system that I built for have AI to be able to qualify your leads for you and to actually get them signed up. We'll be again revealing it to our community and hopefully publicly. That'll be pretty interesting. So yeah, that took us to essentially be able to scale up that law firm. Then at that point, we kind of started. You started asking me for research, and then we were able to grow from it. And then that kind of led to us meeting a little bit more intimately to help for you to help me and kind of mentor me on growing my first law firm. That really helped me kind of set the foundation to be able to automate it, hire virtual assistants. I think that also, obviously we're exposed to virtual assistants, but I feel like in the law firm realm, I was like the first exposure to like show you my staff and what the numbers were.
Absolutely. That was a trigger also that the things that needed to happen with the intake staff after your funnel worked and generated what it needs to generate is the in-house and infrastructure of the intake was just not going to cut it. And that's when we started looking at virtual staff who are a lot more structured, motivated, available to do the intake and convert the leads you generated into actual clients. And that's where the virtual staffing came about. I couldn't find anybody locally that is affordable to be able to do that.
Or as good.
Or as focused, or loving to do it. You sort of have to force people to do intake because they don't like it around here. So that's when we started doing the virtual staffing intake, and we pretty much made it the best it can be by training them, structuring them, managing them to be a very effective, 24/7 bilingual, dedicated intake team. But it began from you generating the traffic so we can actually have something to work on.
And that's the benefit is when you start generating them or you spend money or time to generate them, now it kind of forces your system to be able to catch up. And, our members have that pain. I'm like, good. Right. I'm glad you have this pain or else, you wouldn't really get serious about your system. I really want to go back to you said data-driven decisions. Let's talk about that. I think you have a pretty interesting story about that from way back. Can you share that? And then
absolutely. It's always been everything about the data, everything about generating it, reviewing it, managing it, making decisions on it. I remember when I first got exposed to this data environment, it was just data warehousing. Just collect a whole bunch of data. This is probably about 30 years ago that the data warehouse became a thing. So it was just like, it is very important to collect the data. So data warehouse became a big thing. So we store a bunch of this data on IBM machines and DEC machines and then Oracle machines. And then it says, okay, so we have all this data, what are we supposed to do with it? Then it came decision support, which is DSS, which MicroStrategy, your buddy in the Bitcoin world, came up with this company. I actually met him in his office.
This is Michael Saylor, by the way. If anybody doesn't know who he is, he's the, I don't know if he's the CEO. Now I think he's on the board, but he's the founder of MicroStrategy, which is one of the biggest business data.
Yeah, data analysis, what they call it decision support, because he basically said, okay, we have all this data. I was there when he found the company. It was like, 7, 8 people when I met with him. And he says, okay, I have an algorithm that actually analyzes the data and tells you the information or the hidden information that you need to know. So if you want to make a management decision, you run this algorithm in the data warehouse so you can either support or kill your decision. So you get yes or no, basically, from a data system that tells you, yes, you should expand in this market. No, you shouldn't, or things like that. So that was a decision support. And then later on, when it comes to that story, After that became a data mining, which was a data mining meant basically the data has information in there, but you are not qualified to ask the right question because you don't know what question to ask. So the data asks itself questions and finds a nugget within terabytes of data, something, some pattern, some set of data that you had no idea it existed. So that became data mining. And when we were doing this, I was working for a Hitachi computer at the time, and we had these projects that was a team of sort of experts in data analysis and so forth going at the site and do analysis of the data. So there was several mathematicians and PhDs in science and all of that. So one of this gig was Victoria's Secret. I never forget that because it was a memorable gig. When you go into Victoria's Secret's headquarters and you see the different kind of people that you will see normally. And we were spending probably like 2 weeks trying to figure out how they can set up each location in the world that they have Victoria's Secret stores, what size of clothing they need to have, what colors, and how they lay out the store based on the data of demographics and all the data we bought and the previous purchasing patterns and everything. So the system that we created will basically design the layout of each store depending on the demographic location, the kind of product they should carry. And when you come to the store, what is the first thing you see and what's the last thing you see? And it's different from a store to a store. Imagine you're doing this nationwide. It was very revealing. And that sort of a project increases the revenue per store by like 32% because now it's customized for that demographic.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're a lawyer and you're looking to work smart, scale fast, and enjoy life, right below this video, you'll find a link to book a call to speak to my team so we can tell you how we've been able to help over 500 law firm owners scale their law firm. Now back to the video. So you're literally, it's the same resources that you have, but being more strategic based on data that you have. And that literally leads to 32% more revenue for the business, which when you're like a billion-dollar company, then this is literally billions of dollars on the line just based on these being strategic. And the funny thing is, you shared with me this story about a year ago. And this is at the time when I said, I'm really following Bitcoin. I've been following Bitcoin a lot. And one of the people that I study from and I listen to is Michael Saylor. And you told me this, Michael Saylor, I actually have a story about Michael Saylor. And then you told me this story. And then a week later, it's like about a year ago, after you told me this story of this Victoria's Secret story, literally randomly I'm on YouTube and I literally see a Michael Saylor video that's like 15 years old or 10 years old talking about him doing exactly this for Victoria's Secret. And it was like, whoa, it literally brought Hamid's story to life. I'm like, one, obviously you weren't lying. You weren't making up knowing Michael Saylor. But two, what was even more enlightening for me is Michael Saylor has been in data analyst for 30 years. He knows what he's doing. And the fact that he's been in this for so long, he's been able to see these big trends. So my trust in him kind of grew. And then the more that I also watched Michael Saylor, there was one big epiphany that he shared that basically every 10 years or so, there's new revolutions that happen. And he's able to kind of ride the wave. So, one for him, let's just say, was data. Then he also talked about the internet change. Everything became an internet and, all that stuff. Then it was the mobile change. And now for the past couple of years, he's been focusing on just basically Bitcoin and the whole adoption of blockchain technology. And that he feels like that's like one of the biggest things, revolutions. And now I feel like, sometimes, you trust your own instincts, but if you also trust smart people's instincts, you could kind of ride that wave. My question, Hamid, for you is, do you believe in Bitcoin? What's your take on Bitcoin?
Well, I'm not a big fan because I guess traditionally I'm think of something tangible. And especially when you see, there's two sides of the coin. It's like this currency thing that we see banks failing and so forth that helps the Bitcoin agenda. But I always been something about, even though I'm data driven and I believe data and the data is not tangible per se, I always been curious, but I've never been on the either side of it. I guess if we would break it down, I'm sort of independent. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, but I'm independent. There is pros and cons on both sides of it.
For me, I get to see the opportunity and the benefit that it brings is that, these days the system is, there's a middleman for everything. There's the banking system where anytime you need to exchange money or transfer value with anybody, you have to depend on the system where you have to transfer this person, and this person will transfer it to you. And that, I feel like, it's very archaic. It's slow. It's not, it requires you going to the bank. It's just archaic to me. Versus if we get rid of the middleman and now people are able to transfer value with each other with no middleman needed, with no trust needed. And I feel like a lot of trust has been disrupted in the last couple of years. People have lost trust in government. People have lost trust in
banking system
and the news and people. Like you don't know what you don't know essentially when it comes to these things. This kind of eliminates all those things and
don't take me wrong. The benefit is crazy. It is out of this world. What it provides and the flexibility and is really high. The benefits of it. My only comment was about the valuation of it, not necessarily if it was all the same versus the banking system today, financial institutions and all the controls and all the regulations and stuff versus Bitcoin. I would 100% go Bitcoin if it was just side by side. There's 2 points to this Bitcoin. One is this treating it like a investment or future investment or valuations of it and so forth, which is sort of an investment category, versus the benefit and how it should be. This should only be Bitcoin and no paper currencies and currencies between different countries and a whole bunch of middlemen.
Totally. And kind of like the same way that there was the online bubble, there was internet companies popping left and right for everything. The same thing happened essentially with cryptos. Literally, I think now we're at 20,000 to 30,000 different coins, and the people that know what they're doing in this space, they say 99% of these will be zero. So again, not financial advice, but be careful with these altcoins. But I'm a big believer. I'm a big long-term kind of believer. Again, not short-term. Anything could happen short-term, the next months, next years, but over a duration of 10 plus years, definitely see opportunity there for people to be able to kind of future-proof themselves in this environment of inflation, lack of trust in systems and government, things like that. So, definitely worth exploring. Any other thing you'd like to share? Yeah.
No, I just want to add one thing since we talk about data collection and data analysis and so forth. I just want to let everybody know that this applies to your law practice more than anything else either also. So every law practice, if you do it properly, like any successful businesses out there, is going to be data driven. And I had this conversation with one of my folks that that I was I mentor and I consult with and so forth. So I drew up sort of a plan for him to be a completely data driven law practice. And it was totally amazing. And at the end of the conversation, he asked me, does anybody do this to this extent? I said, no, if they did, they'd be making a lot more money. But the breakdown of the data was to know all your numbers. See, like the number of the leads, number of conversion, cost of the client, cost of handling the client, all the way the duration of time to settlement. Understanding purely like what's the cost of goods, which is basically for you is acquiring a client, and what's the cost of operation divided up per case, and then your gross settlements and your gross net. If you just put that on a dashboard, you can pretty much run it on a dashboard. And then the rest of the data tracking that goes. So you can literally manage the entire law practice. I know for some of the lawyers out there, they say I'm crazy because they need to practice the law, but that's part of it, but not the whole thing.
And I feel like we're both exposed to the back ends of so many law firms, and we're kind of flabbergasted and astounded by how many law firms have no idea what's going on. Completely lost about what's going on, and actually a lot of law firms are not profitable and actually losing money without even realizing it. Can you share, what could happen?
Basically, it's almost like if you they can ask the questions of themselves. It's like any other business. You have a cost of acquisition. I don't care if it's Amazon or Walmart or medical or legal, whatever. You pay and spend some money to get and a case or a client coming in. So you need to know your cost of goods. How much did this case cost me to get here? And then from that also is like again, in any other operation, it says, I got to build something. I need to package it, test it, verify it, ship it, whatever. That's a case management process. So how much did it not cost me to take what I bought as raw goods and build it all the way to the settlements? How long did it take? How much did it cost me? What's my cost of operation divided up to all of that? And that's my net profitability. I haven't yet found a law firm, it doesn't matter, small, medium, large, that have been able to analyze that, collect it, and give me an answer.
We have one of our law firms that has the best chance of being completely automated to the T, and every part of this law firm to be completely streamlined. So it's something I think we're working on, super exciting this year, which is going to be super interesting case study for us to be able to kind of share what got us there. What are some other trends that you see for this year?
This year, the AI is going to blow up everything. So half of the stuff that people are doing right now is just going to get wiped out.
Is there any one specific use case that you would like to kind of explore yourself?
Well, it's like the demand writing, for example. Me and my company, we do demand writing services. We also provide demand writing VAs, virtual assistants to do it. Now we're engaging into a whole new system of the AI version of demand writings, which is much faster, less cost. And now we're developing that platform to be able to do basically demands on demand and just be able to generate demands for any kind of injury practices like PI, workers' comp, mass torts, and such.
And that also means that you don't need as many demand writers necessarily. You could have like just a couple that could do it, pretty efficiently and optimize it instead of depending on so many different people.
It's going to go toward you're just going to basically have one demand inspector where inspects all the demands that is generated, makes final tweaks to it if necessary. And if you have 2 demand writers 2 years from now, one of them is a total waste. And if you think you need it at 8, then you only need 1 to basically check on all the demands that were written up with the AI package.
One that we're exploring right now is also customer service for law firms with AI. Why do you have to answer the same questions over and over from your prospects to your clients? You could just give it its data source of all the questions, answers that you possibly have, and also potentially connecting it with your CRM so that the user is able to authenticate that, yes, this is me, where am I in my case, and then what are the next steps, answered completely in a 24/7 chat hotline,
right?
To kind of get status updates. That'll be an interesting one too.
Absolutely. Actually, I had a webinar yesterday with the founder of Pilma, Ken, who I'm actually going to be speaking at in a couple of weeks on the 16th in New Orleans. And we ran into the whole entire summit is about business of law. And we're talking about why people are coming in there, what they're trying to figure out. I said, look, Ken, half of the people who are showing up are transactional law attorneys, which this AI is basically going to wipe them out in 3 or 5 years. So they're going to come try to figure out what they need to do next. And he says, so what's their job going to be after that? I said, I don't know. We need to figure that out because there's a lot of transactional law, basically for those who categorize it is things like immigration, estate planning, bankruptcy, uncontested divorce, tax law, non-litigation, obviously all pre-litigation. Those are the biggest sort of areas on the chopping block when the AI hits.
Another thing on the chopping block that I see, and I've just put it out there, is short form content. And you just put this out there because I feel like I see the trend and where it's heading, and I kind of want to put it out there. Short form content such as TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels. I feel like people that are right now focusing in on that, at least 50% of people that are doing short form content won't be next year. Yeah. The reason is, even TikTok has realized that people that consume short form content, it does get you a broad reach. Yeah, you're able to get essentially, millions of views or millions of followers. But there isn't that much relationship that's built from these 15-second short clips. One epiphany for me is somebody who was very successful, a lawyer, attorney Tom, who was very successful with short form content on TikTok. Basically, 6 months ago, made a pivot and said, no, I'm not getting anything out of this. I know I have 2 million followers, but it's not really leading to any clients. And he completely ditched TikTok, and he went all in on YouTube. Also, TikTok itself has realized this, so much so that TikTok has started increasing how long the videos could be. So it went from like 15 seconds to 30 seconds and 60 seconds and 5 minutes. Now I believe it's like 30 minutes from what I remember of content. And even YouTube and Facebook and Instagram have kind of slowed down on pushing it so much. So it's not as, as hot as you think. That doesn't mean you should stop doing it. It's still, but it becomes part of like an overarching kind of thing that you do along with your long form content, but you shouldn't just only do shorts. So for people that are just focusing on shorts, or there's a bunch of services that are also offering it, I would just, don't put all your eggs into that basket. Long form content is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that trend also because we do a lot of social media management for the law firms and content creations and so forth. We already shifted to basically, instead of expansion on the staff, on the content creators and content generations, use AI to develop it, optimize it, post it, pretty much run it, and then tell us what's going on.
And that's the reason why we're doing this, by the way. I would much rather have this deep conversation. People that listen to these conversations have a better sense of who we are, what we talk about, what our expertise is, and our authority. All that stuff is established a lot deeper. The depth really matters versus us trying to grind something out for something to get seen by 100,000 views. Okay, 100,000 views doesn't really, it's about the depth more than the width, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Added value.
Added value. So yeah, I think that should be good. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today, and I hope you enjoyed our cool little setting. Hamid, let's kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm just I probably need to spray myself too.
Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll be doing more of these. If you want to see more of these conversations, please let us know in the comment section below. Give us a like also. And if you can, just share this with one other lawyer that you know. When you do that, you will add value to their life. They'll appreciate it. You'll expose them to something new. It will come back to you. I promise that. I do this all the time. Every time, Hamid, I find a good, relevant video. Sean, who's sitting here, Hamid's son, knows this. As soon as I watch a video, okay, yeah, that was good. I learned a lot. But I also know Sean could also get a lot of kick out of it, or Sean's team could get a lot of kick out of it. So I send it to him, and he's able to distribute it. So it's always good to be mindful of other people, not just hold it to yourselves.
Absolutely, agreed.
Any other last words?
No, I just want to thank Shayan for helping putting this together. He's a big shout out to Shayan. He's always been a big element of our progress.
Appreciate it. Yeah, these videos aren't also easy for both of us to do because we have to draw here and take time in the middle of our day. So at least give us a like. That's all we ask, or a comment. Just say hi. That's all we want. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.